Okay, everyone. Sorry about for my delayed start. I had a headlight out on my car, and I needed to get it repaired before tomorrow. So, was rushing to get everything done tonight and off to the races. Okay, so a couple things worth calling out. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so let me switch screens here. Boom. Okay, so first thing, we are almost at the end of Hacktoberfest. If you are watching the recording of this, you probably have missed it because I think this recording is going to drop November 1. So, if you're watching this on Twitch and it's still October, if you want to dive in on Hacktoberfest, it is the entire month of October. So, feel free. For those people unfamiliar with it, it's an event that happens by DigitalOcean every year to try and get people excited and helping out with open source projects such as the Material Design and XAML project, which we're going to hack on a little bit tonight. On that note, let me jump over here. So, Google very helpfully dropped Material Design 3, and right away, earlier today, I had somebody actually in the Gitter chat asking if there is plans to support Material Design 3. And so support is a loaded term, so let me kind of break down a little bit of what I sort of intend or expect to happen. So because the Material Design spec has been sort of a living document, kind of version 1, version 2 that came out just kind of happened and they kind of got blurred together. This one is a brand new site. So, m3.material.io. So they're explicitly calling out this is version 3 of it. What I will probably do, and we're going to spend a little time digging into this a bit more, I probably won't just blindly obsolete all of the other styles and switch everything over to this. I suspect this will be an opt-in, though probably at a global level. I'm kind of thinking, and again, this is with just off the cuff without spending a lot of time reviewing this, that rather than the defaults XAML that you normally include in your projects to bring in all the default ones, what I'll probably end up doing is making a defaults for Material Design 3, just so that there's a little bit of separation. If you want all of the latest and greatest stuff, click it, drop in, you're off to the races. The other thing that will probably, that I'm not entirely sure on yet, is whether this is going to be incremental or one big drop. One big drop is a lot of work, but that really depends on exactly what's all in here, because you'll note, at least in terms of components, there's not a lot here. It's pretty short. So we're going to take a look at it. And that's one of my goals tonight is to, I told the individual in the chat room that at least my plan was to go through it and put together a plan going forward so people could at least see a roadmap of what is anticipated. Also, as a reminder, I'm one person who does a bunch of different projects, so I will happily take contributions on this. So when people ask, hey, when is something going to happen? As soon as the PR is made. I've been doing a pretty good job of trying to keep the PR count down. In fact, we're gonna just take this one right here, right away. And so I've been trying to make sure that as stuff comes in, it gets handled, and the outstanding PRs that are sitting here either have problems or are waiting for particular things. So, for example, this one here has got some outstanding questions on it we've been going back on. This is my own work in progress one, and this full theme editor is demo app related. So in terms of what's actually lacking from the library, all those PRs are closed. So just be aware. And the vast majority of those PRs come from contributors. So if you are one of them, thank you. I appreciate it. It is the amount of time it takes to just review and maintain and all of that takes up quite a bit of time. I wish I could do more just straight coding on this, but unfortunately I have other projects, a day job, a family, little things that take just a small amount of time. Small amount. Sorry. I've been going nonstop for the last hour and I haven't had a break. So if I feel like I'm rushing, it's more of the adrenaline slowly running down from rushing around playing with electrical wires in the rain. Okay, so that is the game plan. The other thing that I would like to take a stab at is getting through this theme brush stuff that I've been working on. Obviously, build's broken, there's lots of work to be done, but this is sort of one of the big features that I anticipate actually getting in for this particular release. Spend a little time cleaning on that, but we'll hack on that a little later. Okay, sorry, I just get really annoyed at, hang on, that corner. Okay, actually, hang on, I know what we can do. Let's see, unlock, boom. Forced to dealing with me in slightly higher size, but meh, corner went away. And lock. Okay, so that's where we're going. Let's start with this. I think, let's see, what do we got for pinned issues? Theme brush rename. The other thing I've been contemplating doing is setting up a project. I've been contemplating leveraging this, and no, for now we're going to go with just a pinned issue, and I might drop out yeah, let me just make sure that this issue is linked from the 4.0 release. I think it is, but I just want to make sure that I get that. List of breaking changes there. So I'm gonna boom. Hold up. What magical button? Oh, I don't like this. I get how it's working. So something I would love to do. I am contemplating going through and writing a custom GitHub action for doing some of the stuff that I do, because right now there isn't one out there that does exactly what I want. There's ones that get bits and pieces of it, and I at one point in time tried to cobble a bunch of them together. It didn't go well. And I realized what I do to build these things up is not overly advanced. What I'd love to do is just have something that ran through looking for my label, pull the titles of these things out, and then let me edit them, set this thing up. You know, things down here with the contributors. I pull the contributor list a little differently than a lot of places. Like, I include, if you comment on issues or submit issues that get brought into the milestone, I put those in place, because even people who go through and comment and provide feedback on PRs or issues is valuable, right? Even if somebody reports a bug and somebody just chimes in and says, hey, tested it, confirmed it as a flaw, that's awesome, right? That saves me time, so love it. I'm gonna just jump in on these guys here real quick. So we're gonna do something like, please note the full list of breaking changes in 4.0.0. So we're gonna just update. We're gonna just slap that in. I just want people to be aware, because not everyone's gonna upgrade straight into the 4.0 release from a previous one, because people update at a very different cadence, and so just making sure that that's linked in there is probably good. Oh, that's not where I wanted to go. Back me up again. Okay, so 4.1, and then that one has it there. Okay, perfect. So I think what we're going to do is we will make a new issue, and we are going to pin it in place of this one. So we're going to bring you up. Okay, new issue. Let's see. Material design 3 roadmap. Boom. And we're going to whack this sucker. Let's see. So enhancement, and where is visual breaking change? Definitely. I don't think it should be a breaking API change, just a visual one. I don't see any reason why this couldn't be backwards compatible. Okay, so let's start with this. Let's see. Google has released Material Design 3. The intent here is to outline the needed work to support it in this library. Okay, you can find the details here. We'll just do a quick link in Markdown. Okay, so let's take a look at Material Design 3 and see what's all in here. So one of the biggest, so this guy here, yeah, so these action bar buttons are currently implemented with the pop-up box control, which is kind of a fancy toggle button plus pop-up put together. And it looks like here there is already, so the biggest change seems to be the shape. Specs, let's take a look at it. Okay, so let's call out eight types of button components. Elevated, filled tonal, outlined, text button, which is what we call flat, icon button, so things like placement don't matter to us. Okay, let's take a look here. These are the common ones. Can I just go specs? Or are you gonna make me dive into each of these? Elevated buttons, filled buttons. See, I don't. Spec. Thank you. Okay, this is what I'm interested in. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So elevated button. So, I mean, the first thing I'm noticing is this curvature here. So one of the interesting parts about this is Google, when they're doing this, they can make some assumptions on content. So here's my first question. What should we do if the content's bigger than this? Should this move and should the corner radius be stretched, right? And you get a different curve? Should this thing go flat and look a little bit more like this maneuver? As the content gets bigger, you get a flat edge through there. I think that's actually probably the easiest to implement. Oh, nice. They actually did darkening spec. Oh, cool. Yes. This is wonderful. This is so much better than the previous spec. This is the detail that I want. Yes. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do, let's do a task list of the controls. I would be curious to hear from people, what is your minimum viable product? So what do you need? Like, do you need all of these styles implemented before you could start adopting in your app? Like, whole kit and caboodle. Because I think most of these things, let's see, so cards, probably not a big deal. Chips, probably not a big deal. Dialogues, it's interesting. They changed it a little bit. Full screen dialogue. There's not going to be a WPF equivalent of that. Yeah, we're not going to have a full screen dialogue. That's not going to be a thing. Yeah, there's some of these things where it's a bit of a judgment call of whether we actually implement exactly like it is. For example, right, so we tend to follow the desktop or large screen guidance most of the time, but occasionally this is built for Chromebooks and whatnot, and so at some point in time we have to square it up with what is in WPF. So that's not a big deal. Some small style changes there. Navigation bar, great, we've already got that implemented, or at least there's control for this. Navigation drawer, this one's more interesting because we don't currently have this. In fact, I think there is an open issue about I thought there was a interesting. I thought there was an open issue for adding this control because this isn't a new control. It's a slightly new look to it. So you'll note Material Design 2 had square corners. So apparently the big thing with Material Design 3, rounded corners are now in. Great. We're rounded. We're rounding all the things. Navigation rail. Again, we have something similar to this. Top app bar, which I assume this is interesting because this isn't one that we have in the library currently, and the big reason is there's not a great use case for it. In a WPF app in Windows, you don't really get this type of layout. And when you do, it's usually better to put it together yourself. Like the demo app has something similar with, the hamburger menu and a drawer host that slides out and whatnot. And typically what I found is there's not a control you want for that. That's usually something you want to put together from pieces. And so we provide the pieces and let people to put it together. And like widgets, yeah, this isn't something that's likely to make it into the library. I mean, these are things people can build with the library, but that's not something that's going to go into the library directly, I wouldn't imagine. Okay, so we got button styles are going to be the big one. Cards, chips, dialogues, navigation bar, navigation drawer. This one, I will say, is probably not needed for an MVP. So for people not familiar with that acronym, MVP, minimum viable product. So how much needs to be in before you ship it. Given that we don't have this today, not necessary. Navigation rail, I would also not put an MVP. We do have navigation rail in the library, but I don't think it's needed for an MVP. Top app bar, not needed. So really, I think my MVP is going to be buttons, cards, chips, dialogues, with cards, chips, and dialogues not being that big. So yeah, so I'm thinking what I might suggest. Buttons are going to be the big one. That's going to be the big shift. Like the elevated card isn't bad. And the default style from M2 to M3 isn't that big of a jump. The shadow's a little different. The elevation looks a little different. I wouldn't be surprised if this border color was slightly changed. But for the most part, this elevated card is not that different. I mean, if you put them side by side, you'll be able to see it. But outside of putting them side by side, I don't think most people are going to be able to see it. So I'm wondering if a better solution, dial that down just a little bit. I'm wondering if a better solution then is to So I'm going to think out loud. I talked about at the beginning not having just the regular defaults.xaml at the root that you include. So yeah, let me picture's worth 1,000 words. Let's not do that one. Boom. Okay. So in your library, you won't have this style. When people go to include this thing in here, you'll typically do something like this. You will include the defaults.xaml. This is not something you need to include. This is just for this demo app. So you'll include this line, and then you'll include either A, B, or C options. We have several ways to bring in the colors. So this defaults brings in the styles for the controls to make them look material design, but basically giving them the shell of a material design control without any color to go on top of it is like building something and not painting it. So this will get you building. This will get you paint. So ultimately, you've got bundled theme, custom color theme, which work exactly as you would expect, or you can go with the standard approach with the resource dictionary. Previously, these two had the disadvantage of you didn't get IntelliSense. That will be fixed with the work that I'm doing now. So all of these will now give you reasonable IntelliSense, and that won't be a problem anymore. So these ones are by far my preference because they're a heck of a lot shorter and they're a lot easier to pick from. They also come with this color adjustment thing, so there are two use cases. Some people want to pick their colors and say, darn it, these are my colors, don't touch them. Other people want to be a little more fluid and say, I'm going to pick some colors, but I'm really concerned with my contrast ratio. I want to make sure my text pops. Or maybe I want to let my users pick a color, but I don't want them to get a bad experience with the colors they pick. So this automatic color adjustment attempts to adjust that such that you get a good contrast ratio. So based upon the foreground color for text either being light or dark, depending on whether you're in light theme or dark theme, it will try to adjust your primary or secondary colors such that you get an appropriate contrast ratio. So it can be quite helpful there, which made me laugh a little bit. It made me laugh because one of the things that they added here, let's see, implementation, theme builder takeaways. They added dynamic color. I am halfway tempted to rename my stuff to use the terms dynamic color. I thought that was hilarious. So something we've already had. Now, this is a little bit different, but it's solving the same problem. So trying to adjust the colors such that the users get a nice experience, rather than being particular on colors. Now, obviously, some places are going to have designers. And by designers, I mean people playing that UI UX designer role. And those people tend to be very particular on their colors. And when they give you a color code, they expect that exact color code. This feature is not for them. This is for we want to either give maybe our users a choice of color without sacrificing usability. I'm sure we can all think of the lovely like fuchsia and orange combinations that people can put together. But things like that. So I may take a bit of a look at how they're doing this generation because it looked like they had open sourced it. Not too concerned with it right now. Typography, is this still the adaptive type scale? Oh, this is interesting. I like how they say large screen TV increase. So, and this is one of those areas where I don't think we would try to mimic it. Because WPF already uses device independent pixels, I would not expect us to try to do work in this library to account for things like maybe DPI resolution. You may want to do that in your app, but I don't think this library is the right place to try to make those assumptions on where this is being used. It just is a quick way to get you into this. Roboto. Yup. Interesting. I'm mildly interested in bringing this in, and I'd be curious to hear people's feedback on what they would expect from this. So right now, the Roboto fonts are bundled in the library, and they constitute a significant percentage. When you download that NuGet package, a big portion of what you're downloading is those font files. They are not small to pull them all in. But with that said, you then get nice fonts. And inside of here, the recommended way of dealing with the fonts is, I'll just show you. Let's see. No. Theme, and then I want the window one. Is with the markup extension here. So there's a nice issue you can go and look at as far as dealing with memory leaks of the fonts. So you can do the static resource approach if you want. There is a potential leakage there. Just be aware of it. It's easy to fall into that pit. This was our preferred workaround of we will cache it locally in a static. It's a lazy, so if you don't end up needing it, you don't have to pay that cost. It's there. It's available. While I'm in here, we're just going to expression body this guy and target type new expression. Boom. So I'd be curious if people would be interested in doing this. I'm wondering whether perhaps we should separate out and have. I'm wondering if perhaps if we include both fonts, and then more importantly, do people want both fonts included? Because that if like I could pull both of these fonts into the package, but that's going to bloat the size. I wish there was a way to opt into the resources. I might have to think about that, because it might even be nice to be able to opt out of including any of the fonts. That's a thought too. Because I could do some work inside of the NuGet package such that the fonts were in dependent assemblies and only pulled in if you needed them. That way so you'd basically have to set a flag, I'm thinking in like your CS Proj or similar, to say, hey, include the font. And maybe by default we pull in Roboto, and if you want to toggle it, you can. Right? We'll give you like an enum for none. I think it's Nodo-sans. Probably butchering that name's Roboto. Let you specify either one of those, both, or none type thing, and pull them in. That might be an interesting bit to try and handle. Okay, is there anything else here? So I don't think we're going to change. Well, suck. Let's look at this. I wasn't anticipating these. So hold on. Primary key color, primary, on primary, primary container, on primary container. Who named these things? I do not get this on. Secondary. So they've added a tertiary color. Lovely. So I think in terms of the color system, what we will probably do. So I'm in the process of adding in with better theming brushes, because the names of our theming brushes are old, and here I will just show theme brush rename. So you can see all of the renames that are happening in here. So this is going to be a major rename. Now, my intent is to leave the old names in place. Release a 4.3 release. But then in the 5.0 release, the old names are going to get axed. So the old names will keep working up until the 5.0 release. 5.0 release is going to delete them. And with any luck, I'm thinking of writing a little like PowerShell script that can, because most of the time you can just do straight find replaces in your project. And so it seems reasonable that I'll just do the find replace for you because I can do this mapping. And then if you want the script, you can run the script. If you don't want the script, you don't have to use it. It's up to you. I don't care. But I figure I know this mapping ahead of time, and rather than making everybody go through and do this, I'll just write the script once and save some time. But in terms of this, what I'm anticipating doing here is for the brush rename, there is, let's see, light, dark. So we basically, for the primary and secondary, we just have these guys here. I don't know why I put secondary above primary. That's dumb. Do that. Primary comes before secondary. I'd probably just add tertiary down below and be done with it. And if you aren't using an M3 style, nothing's going to use those colors, and whatever. It's up to you. But then the brushes are available. So if you wanted to pull in like a you could use then the tertiary colors in an M2 style. You would just have to toggle the brush name. It's probably reasonable. Neutral colors. Background, on background, surface, on surface. Here's something I have never figured out, and this is the same. I don't get why we've got two things that are the same color and two different names. Like, what is the difference between background and surface? They're both using the same source. Why do I have two names for the same thing? I don't know. Surface variant. These are good, and I like that they've cut down the number of brushes. Yeah, so product-specific custom colors. Yeah, and even WPF. You can, just because these are your theme colors, they're the ones you should go to first, but you don't. You can put your own brushes in. It's okay. I don't recommend fuchsia, but you can put in your own colors. Tonal palettes. One key becomes 13 tones. Tonal values each color. This is interesting. I might have to play around with this. This could be useful to generate all of these out. We could probably do this. I'd be curious to understand the algorithm that they're using to separate this. But this doesn't surprise me. Like, there's plenty of, so most people are familiar with like the RGB color space, red, green, blue values. And that works well. The problem is in the RGB color space, taking a single primary color like this green and generating out these buckets, they're using the word tonal value, but I immediately go to something like the HSV color space, hue, saturation, what's the V? Brightness. Okay, HSB, we'll go there. Hue, saturation, and brightness. Because in those color spaces, it is much easier to start from a given color, and if you want to make it, say, brighter or darker, you just turn the brightness knob up and down, right? That's not easy to do in the RGB color space, because given a particular color, how do you go brighter on that color? It's not easy to do. It's not like those nice color pickers where you just, drag the thing up and down. Those are not working in the RGB color space. So I assume they're doing something in that vicinity, but I would probably have to dig into the implementation to understand. So it is on GitHub. Cool. bet you there's stuff in here. This is the doc site. I don't know. Let's go web, maybe. Cool. I mean, this gives me at least something to look at and play with. So, okay, so let's actually write this up. Let's write this up. So I said we were going to. Things to be done to. Okay. High level, the changes to support M3 will be. Let's just kind of go from the top down. Let's start with color. And we're gonna just link. See, high level changes. Color. I think I can get away with this. I think it'll do hyperlinks nicely with headings. Yeah, cool. Let's just put this on the side. Keep this guy here. Put this here. Okay. We're gonna make you bigger. Already supports some amount of the new dynamic colors. We'll need to evaluate the M3 implementation to determine how viable it will be to implement here as well. The other thing that could be interesting is because this is specifically calling out the user's color choice, we could look at pulling, say, the Windows 10, Windows 11 color theme choices. Maybe. Pull those into the app. That way you could opt to have the app follow the primary color of whatever the user has selected for their Windows theme. That way your app feels a little nicer there. Maybe. It's an option. We've got the cool colored bits. Again, some people want to be in absolute control of their colors. Some people want to have their colors adapt. Pick your poison. We're not going to worry about those too much. For the color system, we need to add in the tertiary colors alongside the primary and secondary. They've got what's really interesting is they have omitted the what previously was in here in terms of light and dark. Still not understand the surface ones, but on primary container, secondary, tertiary, yeah. I think what we might do is drop the word mid on each of these. I may do that preemptively. I'm going to add that. I'm going to add that over here. Theme brush rename. Because I think to some degree, yeah, mid will have. So I was already in the process of doing it. Perfect. See, I was ahead of the game. I had no idea this was coming, by the way. Okay. We'll also need to include the container colors for all three as well. These brushes will, because the color brushes are all going to the same code path, be some unused brushes depending on which control styles are being used, which that's already true today. There's potentially brushes that go unused, but by having them all in there, if you elect to bring in both, you can. Okay. So let's do this. Tasks, and we are going to just let's see, add tertiary colors to the theme classes, add container brushes for primary, secondary, and colors. Let's see. And we're just gonna eliminate these, put these in the task list. Add neutral color brushes. Evaluate if the surface ones are actually needed, because I have a strong suspicion we simply use the background brushes instead. So especially after the brush rename, these brushes are going to be fairly dynamic and easy to swap out. A common question that comes up with this library is, how do I change color on Control X? And sometimes it's not easy, because to change that one would affect a bunch of other stuff and whatnot. That's the theme brush rename, is I'm adding a ton of brush keys, so that if you want to change one little thing, you can change that one little thing. And then I'm sure I'm going to not get everything in one sweep, but at least then there'll be a pattern set, and people will be able to see it. Okay, tertiary, blah, 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 blah. Inverse roles. Inverse surface on inverse primary. Interesting. It's okay. I'm going to ignore that for the moment until we need it, because I don't know if we're actually going to get to the point where we need it. Okay, so there's color. Typography. Let's do Task listed here can be considered up for grabs. I am happy to accept PRs for any of them. So to be clear, I will get around to these at some point, but time is limited, and sometimes the best use of my time is directing other people in what needs to happen. Okay, so another font, Nodo Sans, that could be included in this library. And now the fonts make up a significant size, so this will certainly bloat the assembly. Alternatively, we could pull fonts out and make them opt-in, the proj flag or similar. So we could do something like that. So have the font files in the NuGet package, but they don't get compiled into your assembly unless you ask for them. But like maybe default Roboto on, so we don't break back compat and that kind of thing. That's a thing. We could do that thing. Need to. I am interested in hearing feedback on this. Not sure if file size of the assembly matters much to people. So I have worked on projects where file size is a really big deal, and especially on things like mobile, it's a very, very big deal. Desktop's a bit of a different animal. You can usually assume a little bit beefier of a computer. You've got more resources. Is it going to matter if we go from 50 meg to 100 meg? I have no idea how big this is. Actually, we can look at how big. How big are the? Let's look. I can tell you how big these things are. So if we go and look in here, let's see, material design things, WPF. No, it's resources. Yeah. So here's the Roboto directory. 2.8 meg. Is it a big deal if I double that, triple that? Do people care if we're downloading an extra 4 meg? On a desktop app, maybe we don't care. So, feedback welcome. Let's just look. How big is this thing? If we go and pull this, Nodo Sans download family. What is the uncompressed size of this thing? Alright, so we're gonna go paste. 1 second, let me get these into a cleaner thing. So to be clear, maybe I'll put this in. Let's see the size. This would add approximately, let's see, 1.3 megabytes. Okay, so there's the question. Is another 1.3 megabytes a big deal? Oh. Only you can answer that question. Okay, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, tasks. So for this, let's see. I think what I'm going to propose doing, save. Create a copy of the existing, boom, name it. So material design I'm wondering if it really needs material design in front of it. Technically, the font has nothing to do with material design. It's the font used by material design. There's no reason you can't use it elsewhere. You can see the license on Google. And name it. Let's see. Should be marked as obsolete. Create a new. Let's see. Cancel. Noto font extension. Similar to the one above. And include the Noto sans font files. I think that's it. At this point, if we did just this and stopped here, they'd all be included in the thing, and all you'd have to do is swap which font you want, and probably it's your window group, and you're done. That's it. That's pretty easy. So, okay. I think that's it. That's all we're gonna do on fonts. I don't see any reason to go any further in that. Buttons. This is going to be the big one. Okay. This will be the largest portion of the work, as is quite a bit to do. Okay. We're gonna add in here a couple things. Create a new top level resource dictionary alongside. Let's see, we'll just grab it here. So basically alongside the defaults. Alongside it should be called, and I think what we're going to do here is we're going to do this. I don't intend to support a lot of versions of material design. Like, I don't know when we get to version like 4, 5, 6. Like how long we're going to keep something like 2 around. But I think as long as Google's using it, we'll keep it up. Which means it'll stay alive as long as Google wants it there. And actually this should be above it. Create a copy of the resource dictionary. It should be called boom. So we will leave the defaults one around for now. My intent would be at some point to obsolete it and make people pick which defaults they want. So just including buttons isn't going to necessarily get you buttons. I think we're going to do I'm wondering, maybe we should do this. Drop the word theme. Material design 2 defaults. Yeah, because the M here isn't adding anything. I think I like that better. drop the theme, because it's bothered me how big this is here. And you'll note that in like a lot of my brush resources, I've gone down to just the material design prefix. And I think that's the key, is for things like going in the same code path. They will be treated and available at the app level. Yeah, I don't, because these names don't conflict, I don't think there's a problem here. It's just gonna make our fat theme class get a little fatter. Good enough. Good enough. Okay. But I think I like this here. We'll leave this in place. It'll do the exact same thing. It'll do the exact same thing in both cases. This is just going to be a little more explicit. The intent will be eventually to obsolete this, but there's a lot of documentation out there pointed at that. And that's going to be a heck of a break when we do it. Again, it's not a big one for people, and it'll be bloody obvious at the root. But it's going to break a lot of people. I want to be sure of the migration before we delete that. So for now, we'll just duplicate it. We'll have both in place. I think this is a better choice. We'll go slow. I don't know if this stuff is going in for the 5.0 release, by the way. Do not know. And I'm not going to commit to exactly when. I suspect this will come in a little bit piecemeal. If we get all of this in one release, that's a heck of a release. That's going to be a big fatty release. Quite a bit to do. Let's see. Yeah, I think we just go tasks here. There's going to be a lot. Let's jump back. Where is... Oh, this is common. I don't want common. Okay, here we go. So, create style for elevated button. That's a very easy thing to say. It's not as easy to create style for filled button. What's filled tonal versus filled? Style for filled tonal button. I suspect the template can be shared with one for filled button. Okay, style for outline button, create style for text button, I'm a little torn on icon button, because right now the way you do icon button is you do text button and you put a pack icon inside of it. This will be the same style used for icon button. Simply place the content of the button with a pack icon. Boom, done. Okay, there's that one. What is the difference between extended? Take primary actions. So we are not going to implement extended floating action bar button, I don't think. I think we will have one style, and you can tweak some properties on it. For floating action, action button, expected to accommodate the sizing changes documented for the extended tab as well. Boom. Okay. I think that handles everything with buttons. Okay. Cards. Put a link in. Copy. Paste. The cards here are not that different from the ones in the existing library. Still copy the files into I think I'm going to make a note up here. The new 3 styles, they should get referenced by this resource dictionary. Okay, come down here. We should still copy style into a new 3 card resource dictionary, but it may initially be the same as the 2 version, because I know we can tweak things like shadow and depth. We can probably get away with just tweaking some defaults, at least for the elevated. So tasks, let's go here, create style for related card, create style for build card, create style for outlined card. Boom. Easy mode. Chips. It's weird because the chips were initially designed to be rounded, and these ones have gone to square. And everything else has gone to rounded. Assist, filter, input, suggestion chips. Okay. Ba-ba-bum. Chips. I can spell. Okay. So let's go here. Let's go here. Boom. Most of this functionality should already be in place. Just the colors and the corner radius to be the What is input chip? They're assist, filter, input, and suggestion. Action chips have been separated into assist chips and suggested. Choice chips are now a subset of filter chips. So there's not a big difference, but we will do this for create style for assist chip. I don't really like that name. These names do not speak, like filter makes sense. Input's a little confusing to me since they all are inputable. Like they accept input. Is that not an input chip? I don't know what an input chip is anymore. Input's weird. Okay, so how about create style, I should say styles. Style for filter chip. Create style for input chip. Create style for suggestion chip. I didn't put that. For all of these styles, I suspect a single template could be shared, as the look elements of each of these is pretty similar. So obviously, if we shared a template, we would have a template that basically looked like the suggestion one, but then had optional elements for this close icon, the check icon, and a regular icon. I'm not opposed to that, right? Most of these have borders. This one turns the border off. That's fine. I don't care. Or maybe in this case makes the border match the background. That's a thing. Okay, so that handles chips. Let's keep going down. Dialogues. Let me just check and make sure I've got all these. Cards, chips, great. Okay, so boom. Dialogues. For the most part, the dialogues are already done. This library only supports the basic dialogue, not the full screen dialogue. So, for people unfamiliar, dialogue host is the magical control. That's where you're looking. So, what's new? Color, great. Layout, increased padding. See, I don't like, this is not something I expect us to handle in the library. Right now, the dialogue host gives you very limited, I'll say bonus padding. Because that's the type of thing you really should be adding in your own app based upon your dialogue design. And the moment I set a default, you end up having to do something weird with like a negative if you want it a little smaller and whatnot. That's not an easy thing to do. That's dumb. We don't like that. So I don't think this matters. Option for custom basic dialogue positioning. Oh, see, this would be nice. There's an out. Show me other position. That's dumb. So that really doesn't matter. There's been a long-standing request that people have had for like either draggable dialogues or similar. This gets a little more iffy when you realize that we've got two dialogue hosts, the embedded and the regular one. The regular one uses a pop-up, so it sits on top of your window. It's a separate window on top. Whereas the embedded one is like embedded inside your window. Pros and cons to each. The regular one can grow larger than your window if that's desirable. The embedded one is obviously capped to the size of your window. Which one makes sense really depends on your use case. I don't think any of these things really matter. I think the only thing to evaluate is the none of the new features affect this library directly. None new features of the dialog affect the dialog host or implementation directly. I think that is fair. If somebody spots something that I've missed, certainly call it out, but I don't see anything that we would. So I'm going to just move on and say tasks are done. Navigation bar. I'm trying to remember how close is. Oh, that's not the one I want. Stop. Build. Cancel. Want the other app. That one. I'm curious. I don't know, because we don't actually have a navigation bar per se. Let me look. Green bar. Navigation bar. So we currently don't have one. So I'm just going to call that out and move on. This one should be referenced. 652, you can tell it's old. Navigation bar. So we'll put this, we'll include this, but short version, not implemented currently, clearly not needed for MVP. This is a control that we have yet to implement, though happy to accept a PR for it, not a requirement. Initial release. See 652. Boom. For details. Boom. See, just knocking these latter ones out really quick. Navigation drawer. Not been implemented. I'm just going to clean up that sentence. I think that reads better. So this is going to be pretty much identical. Okay, and keep going. Navigation rail. This one we have. Boom. So let's see. What is the difference here? Largely in some of these shapes. Color. So whereas this one went like this, the selection is a little different. Okay, so this one will actually have a mild amount of work on. So navigation rail. Not a lot. This one should be pretty easy. Largely done. Just a few minor updates to how the selected item appears. S. And let me look here, because I think for the most part, navigation rail tab control. Where's this one? Yeah, I think this is just a matter of, because this is the same style in all cases with just some different properties to toggle. Yeah, same stuff. Okay, so I don't see anything different in terms of these. Create navigation rail style. And again, the intent here is that all of these end up in a, like, I would expect a copy paste from the existing style, but put them in a new M3 resource dictionary. And maybe I'll call that out up here. All new new control source dictionaries should be named as control name .xaml. So this is very similar to what it is now. Okay, come down here. Just the one task. Let's see what else. I think we're getting near the bottom. Top app bar. So we'll call it out. App bar. This is not nor do I believe a useful control for WPF apps. Happy to hear suggestions and use cases otherwise. So do remember that all of these are a little bit of Kevin opinion. There's a lot of opinion floating in here. This is not hard set in stone. So if you disagree with one of these things that I'm putting in here, please leave a comment, have a discussion. Happy to do that. And I'm not even going to bother to include widgets because, yeah, no, that's very much Android specific. Okay. So submit. There's what the roadmap looks like. So I think in terms of MVP requirements, and I'm going to edit this real quick. High level changes. At a minimum, these tasks and the color changes need to be implemented to start releasing these new styles. So just in terms of this, a minimum viable product for me is going to be getting these tasks done up here, getting the color ones in, because those are going to be a requirement. But in order to get the color ones done, I got to get my current PR done. So there's that. Okay, so I think there's that. There's that. So let's go back to issues. I would like to pin issue. Oh, I can't pin the issue with the other one in my way. We're going to turn you off. Also, I have mixed opinions of the new purple color. I can't decide if I like it. those are the hot topic items. Let's see. I saw a lot of feedback on this. Yeah, that's the right answer. I'll label you the question. Okay. This one was marked as that. I'm going to leave that here. Be aware, things with question, I do go through and close out after a while. Usually I let them sit for a month or so. I'm in no rush to get them cleared out, but but I have been trying to clear a bunch of these out. This needs to be evaluated because I recognize this name. This is a common contributor, which means this is likely not a simple mistake, potentially a bug. And I'm surprised given the date too. I thought this was fixed in the latest release. I might follow up with a comment there about latest release. Okay, anyway, theme brush rename. Let's go back to this. So the goal here is to fix a bunch of these brushes. These brush names were picked initially back in Material Design V1. They got renamed and modified a little bit in V2, and then more importantly, a bunch of stuff kind of got tacked on to them. Like, we added brushes that weren't necessarily in the spec and that kind of thing. It was like, the naming's been a mess. So the new naming goes like this. For the most part, pretty simple and straightforward. And if I recall correctly, tab control is where we left off. So we are going to go back to here. And I'm going to have to it's been a little while. I got distracted on what I was doing. So, but tab control is all the way down here. So, I think we can do a bunch of these. So, let's start here. Why is my zoom just stupid? There we go. My zoom is stupid. Okay. Okay, so no brushes are used in here. Not overly shocked. Typically, you don't set your foreground color on the text block itself. You set it higher up and inherit down. This one. Resource. So we got a bunch of them. As you can see, I have been changing a lot of these. Right? So there's a bunch of stuff in here. So let's start at the top and we'll just work our way down. Text box border. So let's open up the theme. I don't know which one it is. I'm gonna go up here. This guy. So there's this guy here. So text box brushes. So I want to look and see, do I have a border? I do. So this should be material design brush text box border. Boom. That one. That goes like that. And then this one here, I think we can do a blind find and replace on. I think this likely came around. So we're gonna go like that. Replace. The curiosity. Look at that. Let's see, match case. That's what I want, and I only want the current project. So I'm very intentionally not doing this find and replace in the demo project because I want to use the demo project in its current state with no changes. Because with these brush updates, I expect an app with no brush name changes should keep working. So I'm trying to leave it in that state so that I can use it to test. Okay, so that'll clean that up. Okay, let's keep going. Validation error template. This is bad. You don't use dynamic resource for this. You use static resource. Underline brush is already set. That one's set. Take me to the Shift F3. I think we already have one for this. Hover background. Is that what this is? Hover background. It looks like it. Material design. Brush. Text box. Hover background. Okay. That's great. F3. Filled background. What was that one going to be called? Let's just grab that, because everything's going to be under that. Sorry, text area border. I don't know what the translation is for this one, so let me go back to my issue. Text area border is going to be replaced with a new brush. Okay, so has outline text field, and this is the border. So hold on. Oh, so this should be outline border. Oh, that's what it is. That's why I can't find it. Outline border. Done. Okay. As you can tell, I've done a bunch of these already. Inactive border, I believe, exists. I think that's where that one goes. Because this is triggered on is enabled false. Disabled background. This is being set as the border brush on what? Yeah, that should be the same one. Let's see, hover background, I believe I saw. Yep. That one's changed, that one's changed. Okay, back to the top. We're just gonna, I've just been checking in at each step of the way. Boom, boom, boom. What was here? Moving those down. Clean up. Password box, clean up there. Great. Boom. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see. Themes. I'm intentionally not pushing because I don't want to break everything yet. Thumb. Probably not a lot here, but let's look. Yep, not a lot there. Next. Time picker. There's going to be some in here. Okay. So this one here, let's look. So this is going to be a border, and I don't think I've made, yeah, there's no time picker one. So we will go with public sealed class time time picker brushes. So to be clear, the reason for doing this here, and I'll show you the mapping in just a second, is I like being able to manage my WPF resources in a variety of ways. Most of the time, I like just specifying them in YAML, or not YAML, yeah, XAML, and being done. That works great. But occasionally, especially when you're doing like custom theming, it's nice to have a strongly typed object to work with. That's what this is. At some point, I have high hopes of doing like a source generator to just build this for me so I don't have to think about it. It'd be really nice. I don't really want to put in that effort right now. But that's something that we could do. Okay, sorry, distraction. Text box border. So I kind of want it to follow the text box naming. Okay, so we add it here. Come up here. So the main theme is going to be this guy. So public time picker brushes. Time picker. Bum. All of those guys. Great. That works. And then we need the mapping to and from, which comes. We can probably just pick on one of these. Here. So this class here, this theme manager, is largely what's responsible for doing it. So, for one, it maps from the old iTheme class. So, okay, just in terms of organization. If we look here, this theme manager, there's this new theming namespace. That's where this stuff is going. The old stuff was at the root. So the new stuff is in the namespace, old stuff is at the root. This is going to get removed, but for now, it's what's doing our mapping from point A to point B. So this is how we keep the old stuff working. Come down here. Because this guy's current responsibility is mapping from an old theme into our new theme. So we have a new time picker element. It has a border property, and that comes from the old theme. Text box border, I believe, is what it was. Text box border. Great. Okay. So this so that's going to handle the mapping from the old object into the new object. Now we have to handle with that new object, this new theme class, assigning the appropriate brush. So, given that, we come down here. We're gonna go copy, paste. Let's see, time picker, border, time picker, border, like that. Boom. So that takes the existing object and writes the resource into the XAML. And now we have the reverse direction of when you're going from the XAML into the C# class, we need to parse it back out. Which is great. We can do this. It's going to be time picker. Currently just has a border. Get color. Kind of want to just go back up here and grab that guy. Booyah. Come down here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Bippity boppity booyah. Okay, so now with all of that work done, I now have a new brush I can use that can come up here and go poof, like that. Because this is the challenge with each of these, is determining, should it be a control specific brush, should it use one of the existing ones. Right now there's a lot of it can use the existing ones, and that's the part where when people say, hey, I want to change just this piece, it's not possible currently. This separation is what makes this possible. Hover background. So we want to do the hover background one, which is fine. And the only convenient part is a lot of controls kind of share a lot of similarities. So the text box, you'll note most of these brushes, if not all of them, come over wholesale, because there is that much similarity. So we'll just start at the top, work our way down. Hover background is coming from what though? Text field box hover background. Let's see, old theme, text field box hover background. Bum. Then we come down here. So hover background. This guy should be hover background. Copy, paste, just to make sure I didn't typo anything. Come down here. Background. Hover background. Boom, boom, boom. And now you should be fine. Be used there. Oof. And you'll know right now I'm not getting IntelliSense. The magical incantation that actually gets us the IntelliSense. I can show that off real quick. So, even though these things were previously resource dictionaries, this maneuver. Again, this is another thing I'm wanting to auto-generate because there's so much that can be auto-generated. Though I may make this end up being the source for the generator and the rest of it be what's generated. We'll see. We'll see. Either way, for now we're just trying to get it in and working and clean it up later. Okay, so text field. So this is for the filled. The filled. Not field. Filled. My pronunciation is not great. Filled background. So I imagine that is this guy. And I've sort of separated these things out just a little bit because that is, they end up being sort of mutually exclusive ones. And this is background, box background. And go here, do that, down here, boom. So yeah, as you can see, there's nothing right now that enforces that this thing matches that thing. It's all by convention. Now, it's a convenient convention and behaves exactly as you would expect, but I'd really like to have it generated so that I don't have to rely on that convention. Okay. Okay, and so this is outline border, which I believe should exist. Let me just check. Outline inactive border. I assume we're going to get to that here in just a second. Outline inactive border. Yeah, we're going to need it too. So I'm going to just do both of these at once, since I know they're both going to come through. Okay. Back to the top again. You can see this has been very slow going. Very slow going. Border. Inactive border. Okay, that's those two. Let's head on down. How about outline border, outline inactive border, copy, paste, copy, paste. Okay, so those now exist. So we'll do outline border first, copy, back up. That's where we were. Boom, outline border. Okay, next, and that one's done. And there's the inactive one. So we come over here and just grab that guy. That guy goes there. Hover background. So this should be. So it really should be this, but I believe hover background. Let's see, that one's done. That one's done. That's fine. What do we got here? This is the border of the time picker. So it should just be material, design, brush, time, border. This one's go there. Clock style, you do not set styles. I found a lot like this, where a style or template is being set with a dynamic resource. The reason that's a bad idea is dynamic resource has some extra plumbing involved because it has to keep track of when that resource changes doing an update. Whereas a static resource is no, just link right here, right? Grab this thingy, put it here. Simple. It's kind of like the subtle difference between invoking a static method, which is call that method at that point, don't think, just do. Versus dynamic resource is more like calling a virtual method where it can be overridden or changed or whatever. Right? In this case, dynamic really means notified of updates. Well, that shouldn't be one either that I would expect to be overridden. Basically, if it can change at runtime, it should be dynamic. If it can't change at runtime, it should be static. And if you're unsure, start with static until it hurts. Okay, sorry. Slight deviation. Okay, so what do we got here? This is the filled background again. Filled background. So it's going to be this guy. There, outline border, this one, there, that's fine, and some of these trigger ones that are doing like this may end up being converted at a later point into a control specific resource. The advantage of doing that is it gives you one more injection point where if you say, okay, I want to change this particular color, but only in this particular trigger condition, it gives you a way to do it. Because right now, that's kind of hard to do. Let's see, inactive. I think we already did that one, didn't we? Oh, this is outline though. Outline border. Got it. So this is this one. Yeah, the big push here is just to get the new names in place and then circle back and build out the rest. Figure out what's missing. So this is filled hover. I believe we were doing this guy. And that's the end of that. Okay, so we're going to add a couple more comments. Let's see, there's the time picker we did, yeah? Yep. Okay. Time picker brushes. Cool. Okay, with that, before diving into another one, I know I'm close to getting through the first pass of all of these. I think I'm going to wrap this up. First, I'm going to rebase onto master. Sorry, what? Abort rebase. Why are you being dumb? Close window. Is Visual Studio being dumb? Because that should have been a clean rebase. Bundled theme. Reset all. Why are you... Rebase. Method init has thrown an error. Okay. I'm going to be convinced that you've lost your mind. Get cracking. Burn some of those. Burn some of those. Let's try this again. There's nothing else open that should be locking on it. Okay, maybe I'm not going to rebase really quick. Why are you so convinced? What? Rebase. Huh? Something is up with my repo and I don't understand what it is. Reset hard. And then pop. Discard. Reset. Delete stash. I will have to play around with it. But if anybody wants to help, I would definitely not turn it down. The other thing that I would not turn down is if somebody wanted to dive in on a PowerShell script or similar that just did a blind basically I would anticipate pointing it at a directory, have it just chew through all the XAML files and do blind find and replaces based upon those mappings. The final mapping is everything inside of that the theme manager class. You can use a little bit on the issue, but there's several brushes that are like control specific ones, and what those control specific ones are is this mapping here. Basically, I want to be able to just blindly do this. So my intent is to not update the demo app and leave it in a state where I can test with it being in the old brushes. But if I had a script, it would make it nice for converting it over to the new ones, test stuff, etc., go back and forth. So that would be the intent. So if anybody wants to take a crack at that, I would very much like to pull that in. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up for the night. Say thank you everyone for coming and hanging out. Last week's stream, I haven't gotten posted up online. I forgot to hit the stop streaming button, so if you see it on Twitch, you'll notice it's like 8 hours long with like the latter, 8 minus 2, 6 hours of being just kind of sitting there of my closing screen. So that is trimmed off on the YouTube version, but I need to put some markers in and that kind of thing. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. Say thank you very much for coming. Happy coding. See everyone next week.